So it's said in the sutra that all phenomena are just conditions, and they abide at the tip of your intention, which means that everything that exists because of conditions, and what we call virtue or non-virtue just depends upon the intention behind the deed. And so whether we are in a setting like this where we are explaining and listening to teachings on the Dharma, or just in our ordinary day-to-day Dharma practice, whether that involves prostration, circumambulation, recitation of text, meditation, and so on, whatever virtuous activity we may engage in with it through body, speech, or mind, before we begin that practice, it's very important to make sure that we generate the proper attitude of bodhicitta and make sure that practice is sealed by that attitude of bodhicitta. So in the Madhyamakavatara, the entering into the middle way of Chandrakirti, it's said that so then the first line of the quote says that the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, that is the hearers and solitary realizers, arise from the Buddha. So they arise from the teachings of the Buddha, where the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths and the 12 links of dependent origination, and by practicing those dharmas, they attain their final result of Shrivaka or Pratyeka Buddha.
산제 산적 선발에 통신 선발이 다 산제서야 돼. 양띠 문도 줘 아니 지 산적 선발. 어디 뒤에 이게 가르세 다 냠슬랑한테 띠나 산적 선발 사람들도 람제 주나 근데 산제지 공방 톱고 해야 봐. 근데 산제대 산적 선발에 통해 요래스.
And so the Shrivaka and Pratyeka Buddhas who attain the arhatship of their own path attain that by practicing the Dharma of the Buddha, so they arise from the Buddha. And then the next line of the text says that the Buddhas are born from Bodhisattvas. So the cause of a Buddha is the Bodhisattva that is to become a Buddha in the future. So before one becomes Buddha, as a Bodhisattva, one practices the Bodhisattva paths and bhumis and attains each state and gradually attains Buddhahood. So then the second line says that the Buddhas are born from Bodhisattvas.
산초 숨바쳐서 저 강나 뛰는 통화리시나 아니 산초산 닌지산다 니스메로 당 산초산의 자세 남지죠 숨마데 닌지산당 지나다 생긴 이나게 저거 닌지지 못 대당 니스메로 지나다는 공도는 최주권은 강구주권 로미즈 세야는 소만나 인기 주단계 이제 띵된 저런종아 사모동반이 어떤 니스메바로 사모동반이 말에 대당 아니 다다단데 인동도 아니 산지의 공방도 없는 일밖에 아니 산초구산 어때서네 아니 산초숨바도 중요히 송하지 된두제인데 다다다 니랑 봐봐 산제 봐봐 아니 산산 봐봐 다때서 그 저참아 마송인데 다게 인계다 아니 이제 인은 아니 이제 펜바기 펜바라고samba기 sambasam보다 산초구산 뚱이가 다오 텔때는 되는 소마리 손테니 손데 진리적인 바인데 당황서지 배 남고 산지가나 그게네 디 인계다 아니 진핑기 이제 산초구산다 뚱이가 다와서 아니 이제 축가래 들어가 있는 이제 다들 말어 아니 이제 다디 그 님분도 아니 다 지지생 거 봐도 아니 진짜 성나는 여리 되는 말이는 항상 지금 신이가 많아요 되니다 지금 상조구산다 아니 지금 삼바다 hinge라서 그 본은 남네 항상 배워안죠 나 배워양다고 같이 차리요 돼.
And so, where then are the Bodhisattvas born from? From what cause do they arise? So then the next line says that from the mind of compassion and from the non-dual mind arise the Bodhisattvas. So that is that mind of Bodhichitta. And so that is the mind which has love and compassion for beings, as well as that non-dual mind realizing emptiness, as it said previously in the text, that though they see that there's no coming and going, that's that mind of emptiness, the mind which realizes profound emptiness. And so the mind which wishes for Buddhahood for the sake of others and strives towards that Buddhahood for the sake of others is what we call Bodhichitta. And so in this line from the entry into the middle way, it discussed the three Arya beings, that is the three levels, that of the Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, then the final state of Buddhas, as well as the state of Bodhisattvas, and where they all came from. And ultimately, they all come from this mind of Bodhicitta. And so, because this Bodhisattva then arises from this mind, this superior intention to benefit others, which is that mind of Bodhicitta, together with that view of emptiness. And so whenever we are going to practice any Dharma, it should never be separate from this mind of Bodhicitta. And so then it is actually the essence of Dharma practice is Bodhicitta and the view of emptiness. And so when we are going to engage in this kind of practice of hearing and explaining the Dharma, then we need to generate that mind of bodhicitta in order to generate the proper intention for listening to the teachings or explaining the teachings. And if we do that, then our practice of explaining and listening to the teachings will become an authentic and pure virtue.
산제께는 당가서 심진기 삼바다 무바다 아니 저 박차 문라발 띠네 가만 무바가 삼세다 문라발 띠네 되니 취지 보면 이제 지동선 아니 이제 취소배 망보지 되는 소녀래 다 저소나 좀 미지기 차상지 법정세 토야다 차상지 냠선이 토야요 말에 예막 얘네야 아니 다때 참은 냠선들이 맡았나요 그래서 아니 산지기 민망부라 아니 그거는 취낙서까지 송바 임바인데 그래서 차상 냠선이 토고 말이다 냠선이 토 고야네요 얘네야 다 뛰는 나랑서 이제 그바치 먹고 취 냠선 랑네 뛰는 메도 말은 와키 다네 되게 춘나만 니요 이 말에 다때 삼년지 상조 그 삼대다 이제 된전 저번 용어 그 사모도 많이 뒤동이 다 ninji 다 된니보테 다 된네 다 매도 말어와 네버도 나는 소리지 냐서는 거야 왔다 진입에 차도해 봐 말이야.
So the Buddha taught 84,000 dharmas to accommodate all of the different intentions and capacities and habitual patterns of various sentient beings. And so it's not possible for one person to practice them all. It's not only not possible, it's unnecessary. And so what is it that is necessary? What is it that we absolutely need? It's two things, and those are the Bodhichitta, which is the mind of love and compassion, and the view of profound emptiness of dependent origination. And those are the two things that absolutely must be practiced.
That is it. Then 라는 소대만 나네. 다다는데 나바티. 종이 뿜어서 담바스다 돼 이말에. 내가 강단로나 독선 변절지. 추상범도 사원 연결을. 상당히 매पर 주지도 종이 뿜어 제세라니.
And so now back into the main text of these 37 practices, we are on the fifth, which is abandoning bad friends or evil companions. So it says, when evil companions are associated with, the three poisons increase, the activities of listening, pondering, and meditation decline, and love and compassion are extinguished. Abandoning evil companions is the Bodhisattva's practice.
강단로나 시나 아니지 종인바 강단로나 되니 랑비죄라 독순지나다 너자 시당 또뭐 나자 차도라 소바기 뇽뭐 프로그램 조시 되니 랑비죄라다 투상검선나 소바기 게위인디 만냥번저와 저버세바 그 종인바서 방고베스.
So, whenever those bad friends or evil companions are associated with, then all of one's, it says here 3 poisons, but we can include all of the poisons. So the poisons of attachment, aversion, ignorance, jealousy, and pride, all of those increase when associating with such people, and all of our virtuous qualities of hearing, contemplation, and meditation diminish.
딱 저 시담지 이제 여바 있는 말이나 어떤 되는 년들은 가도에는 따벌 되는 로데바 인바이나 가래는 나는 그 주대 아니 지 시당다 컨트롤 차오진 차는 버리겠어. 가래스는 뒤다 가도에는 지 시당다 컨트롤 그 깨자시 해요리 딱 거는 그 공지대로 지 시당다 컨트롤 그 아니 지 된데 딱 깨자시 나리 소복 남유의 소속의 시간이 나리 다시 간들이 지 인바이나 뒤니 초와기 공시 다 뭐뭐 진행도 되면 돼데 다 다몽하는 지시가 되니 공long 차오다 공론라고 좀 해봐 이마이나요. 뒤 조보기 조보면밖에 또 되게 롱 대 소소한 시간 공로지 차임로다 되니 말이야. 다만 이제 너 자다 또 맞아 찾아와서 봐 저 와인 말이야. 같이 민도 자 진지 진행도 손대봐 이마이나 그 가드시 봐 이나요. 지티 던더 자가 거당 지티니다 소소 집단 용문바당 된리게 자셔야 안에 된린 코리오큰 초와가 나가 되는 냠도 취야 된리게다 망보지 된리 가도 얘나 진리지래 되데 갈래 되는 소소를 열어야 되는 시장 공부 다도 맞아서 봐 퍼리에리 버서히리.
For example, if you spend all of your time with a person who's very angry and are always going around with them and listening to their speech and observing their behavior and seeing their physical gestures, their character, and so on, gradually that starts to rub off on you. And even if in the beginning you were not an angry person, you were not a person who had a lot of anger and aversion, then gradually that can wear off on you to the point where you also become an angry person. You start to adopt some of those negative qualities. And it's the same when we talk about people who are very desirous, ignorant, proud, or jealous. And so if you're around someone who's constantly talking about their desire and constantly talking about their attachment and desire, and you're always surrounding yourself with such people, then gradually those negative qualities, those kind of negative attitudes or emotions begin to become part of your character. They start to rub off on you. And even if you're hanging around with someone who has this angry character, then if you're spending your time with them, even just with things such as going together with them to see a film or to a movie or something, they're going to always want to go to films that are about violence and fighting and killing people, and similarly, if you're around someone who is very desirous, then they're always going to be talking about their desire. They're going to want to influence you, or not want to. Anyway, you will end up discussing those kind of topics with them, and similarly, they would want to see films about that. And slowly, as you spend more time with those people and are taken to places that they like to go to, those start to become some mental impressions, some habitual patterns that start to rub off on you, and then that can slowly become a habit for you. And so just by associating with such bad friends, or as it says in the text, evil companions, one's own afflictive emotions can start to arise. Increase.
This is an young trouble member, and the Zenshi thinking, Goja thinking, the net Taman thinking, Chang thinking, the net in the Newset in the Yoruba, the Taman. What Taman was in the Yoruba? What's in the beach? You think in Yam that you and just someone by collect a condo in Jonado. So some him a Taman thinking and a Taman thinking, Chang thinking and Chang thinking a chap. The net that you meet the Somazaki and the Desanki and a chap. But I think Mambo Chichan or you didn't in the Tobung members of Pango Grace. The Tobung member of Mabana, the Nizambi Jula, and a chick. None may be June and Niba Mambo Jim Guna. Then it is Zambi Jula, New Balas or Peril.
And similarly, someone who's very honest, if they're always hanging around with people who are always lying and stealing, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, taking drugs, and if you spend a lot of time with them, over time, a person who never smoked cigarettes could start smoking cigarettes, who wasn't a drinker could start drinking, and who didn't take drugs could start taking drugs. And so that's why it's important to abandon such bad friends. And if you don't, then you will start to, you can start to have negativities and faults that you didn't have before coming because of the association with them, and also an increase in your negative emotions.
To that Shiraka Jab and the Choyo Marisando, the other end of Zemontavando say, the end of Javan, Janton, Coffee Ton Sando, that thing means in the Taco Naving Tang, and then New Mountain, then they tap, Sanzen Monguchiki, then the Jin Shukin Len, then none such a chew, Tobian say, Gomja, and Yamin say, but to some Monguchi trouble out the tongue of this. Then they call Corona Chula, gum, then you may buy. Then you might in the deep compete so to the learn. Then it's also good jewel and it chilla check the bottom of what's Yamia. What the new is.
And similarly, it decreases our practices of hearing, contemplation, and meditation. if one was practicing, studying, meditating, and you spend a lot of time with bad friends, then they become obstacles to your practice of hearing, contemplation, and meditation. They'll say, oh, it doesn't matter, you can skip it today, we'll go have fun, let's go have tea, let's go have coffee. Why are you wasting your time with this stuff? And then you'll get caught up in distraction and busyness, and because of those conditions, slowly become influenced by them to the point where you no longer have that keen interest in the Dharma. And you start to adopt a lot of their habits and lose a lot of your faith and really sharp interest that you had in the Dharma before.
Pottery Mooji and draw, Deva Jin draw, Deva Peril so. Draw Samba and Hingi Jin the Nilan draw, Deva Imayina, Takale, Galeni, so with Jula and Samba and Hingi to so in it, Jula G, indeed in it, Yanitazo, component of this. Tarana Yita, draw Jin Baja, Shedan Tomo, Maja, Tado, Deva Tasolian, the draw Deva Imayina, and so with Jen and Yum, but as a Peril somebody. Indeed, my Indy. 나도 찍다 개버 trouble 하장 짜지 뭐 이마 근데 이제 듣고 trouble 좋은 것에서 당 무슨 그 광고야다 그걸 내 담고 간다 근데 좋은 것에서 광야티 아니 기침벌이 좋은 공을 제세라니
And similarly with one's practices of love and compassion, that love and compassion that one had, those qualities will also be diminished by spending a lot of time with these negative companions. And all of as a result of spending time with them, instead of having that love and compassion, then the 3 poisonous minds will increase. Patra Rinpoche said that if you associate with faithful people, your faith will increase. If you associate with people who have great love and compassion, your love and compassion will increase. And similarly, if you associate with people who have strong afflictions of attachment, aversion, ignorance, pride, and jealousy, then also your own afflictions will increase. And so that's why virtuous friends are so extremely important and precious to us, and why, especially as beginners in our practice, it's essential for us to abandon such bad friends.
다 조상보 개비신이 된 소를 되는 소마인다. 내가 간식되는 니바 센저시 연대 양무다다 번저로 신이 담바랑을 리베장 기본 점바 자세라는서.
And next we move to the very good friend, which is the spiritual teacher. So the next verse is relying on the spiritual teacher or spiritual friend. When sublime spiritual friends are relied upon, one's faults are exhausted and one's qualities are increased like the waxing of moon. Holding sublime spiritual friends even more dear than one's own body is the Bodhisattva's practice.
다 대선도 간식되나 세나 아니지 조상보 개비신이 다 간식된 바이 마이나 근데 랑게 죄를 여바기 니바 단대자 시단 또뭐 맞아 타도라서 바뀌네 좀은 니바데다 어떤데 그 명몽바데다 단지 마세번 저리스 어째 다나진기 땅난도 끝난지 사망는 봐 아니 지금 내가 기초바 공식는 봐 어떻게서 잠베 아니 지 게비신이 도자모 그토키 마세번 저리스.
And so, with this very good spiritual friend, then all of our 5 afflictions of attachment, aversion, ignorance, pride, and jealousy will diminish. And all of the faults that we have, both of body, speech, and mind, will be eliminated as a result of associating with such spiritual friends.
연대 양무다단 번저를 손대다 게비신이 딘디된 바이 마이나 되네 랑게 줄라 투상범송 그 연대 다가는 이제 그 미스삼바잠보 아니 이제 죄바잠보 다가는 이제 이제 다 다른데 삼바는 닌제라서 봐 뭐 된적이 연대 돼서 아니지 양무가 다다르신 지 니네 진들은 근데 야진도 그래서.
And if you rely upon such a spiritual friend, then one's practices of hearing, contemplation, and meditation will increase. You'll become a kind person, a person with good behavior and intention, and the qualities of love and compassion will increase like the waxing moon.
근데 그것이 있어야 돼. 나랑서 그다다 진짜 제슈를 저여러 대래장. 근데 기본적인 그것이 있는 거 그래 손말에. 단념이 다보는 뭐지 그 손이 말에. 다 대란에 추도번 더가 그 로제 인마이나. 다 내가 담보대 가는 거 저거 그랬으나 다 그것이 있는 거 되는 거 저거 그래 손말에. 다 그것이 마디면 인마이나 다 나랑서 그 아니 제 추도다왜 말이야. 나는 공부시반 아닌데去Dupa来讲，读书做什么的，去这娘子人打木，去这读娘子人把来讲，那这去娘子人当的，去读书的时候，也不希望的给钱不的什么样的，但是去读当也不的戏，马那吧，咱也不这戏过吧，因为呢，但这他批的给不起你的定过了吧？哎，真的这因为的，你这给不起你的。你这两个女来讲，咋起我个呢？给不起你，定呢？但是给不起你，照顾不来是。
And then the next line says, holding sublime spiritual friends even more dear than one's own body. So we consider our most precious thing to be our own body. That's what we consider most precious generally. And so we should consider the spiritual friend to be even more important than that. And so the incomparable Lord of Dakpo, that is Gampopa, said that if you want to accomplish the Dharma today, if you have a thought today that you want to accomplish the Dharma, then what's the first thing you should do? The first thing you should do, or the way you should start, is by relying upon a spiritual teacher. And so if you don't do that, then you have no way to accomplish the Dharma. Like we said before, that even more important than practicing the Dharma is knowing how to practice the Dharma. So when you first start, we discussed before that that when you first start, that knowing the way of practicing is the most important thing. So if you already know, if you want to know how to practice properly with no mistakes, then you have to rely upon a spiritual teacher. And that's why it said then that one should hold the sublime spiritual friend even more dear than one's own body.
아니 도장목의 줄을 유대바가 연진돼서 딱 갈래 아니 저거가 신 저거가 똑되게 저는 나는 저거 줄을 아니 저 뒤연진돼서 런나 아니 나는 저거 정말 소소히 많이는 변나 근데 저거 장목이 똑되게 아니 지금 선바장보다 아니 지금 근데 여러 장주도 소양 아니 저거 장목이 때문에 도보상보다 뛰나 아니 되는데 야제를 넣어야 돼. 근데 다만 이제 이제 추드바가 가봐야 추로상보다서 때냐 하는 기체 뭐래. 다 당모서인 바이나야 다 나눠서 제 추드바라 참삼도 제다 마시바야 망보여. 참삼도 레로랑 망보제거래. 남양양 망보제거래. 근데 추를 제 된디 대성당 당에서 제 된디기다. 나 저거 망보지 나눠서라니 이제 된디 제일 까만 망보지 제일 다 얘는 아니 이제 주로하고 제 여바인바이나 뒤에 이제 뒤 조보대 네체 뒤꼴마다 뒤나 되는 거서 추를 제 가와요 봐 추를 또와요 봐 추를 존주요 봐 되는 추를 대봐요 봐아당 되는 미기 이제 섬 동남리 남주인기 이제 되는 소화기 딱 맞아 가서 이제 되는 마체가 난게 잠주당 야라 관심 뭐 제 도볼 때는 같은 일을 해야지. then the Gavishini Zachimbo, Yambatan, Gavishini, the thing Gubanaji, then Namjun, Chudo Zambo, Soya, and then also Chudoba, and Gachimbo down, and the Soya and then also Gavishini, the Charlie by Mother.
So, just like we should rely upon a spiritual friend, similarly, just in our normal day-to-day lives, good friends are really important and really precious to us, because if we spend time with them, then all of the good habits, positive qualities, and so on that they possess will slowly, as we spend time with them, start to come to us or become part of us. And so just like we discussed with the spiritual teacher, the same type of thing can happen. And so especially when we're talking about Dharma friends, so relying upon Dharma friends and spending time with Dharma friends is also extremely important. When we're practicing Dharma, there are lots of things that we don't know. There's a lot of laziness that can creep in. There's a lot of distraction we can fall into and a lot of doubts that we can have. So there are many different types of problems we can encounter in our path. But if you have some good Dharma friends, then they can help to encourage you. They can help endow you with an interest and an enthusiasm for the Dharma, a diligence in your practice, help instill faith in you. And so many of these positive qualities come about and are helped and encouraged by way of associating with good Dharma friends. And so just like we said that one should rely upon the spiritual teacher or spiritual friend, also good Dharma friends are also considered then in that same category of spiritual friends. So now we move into going for refuge. What worldly gods, himself also bound in the prison of cyclic existence, is able to protect others? Therefore, when refuge is sought, taking refuge in the undeceiving triple gem is the Bodhisattva's practice. So going for refuge is extremely important. It is the door for entering into the Buddha Dharma, and it is the foundation for all the Buddhist vows. So whatever Buddhist Dharma that you're practicing, whether it come from the Theravada or Hinayana or Mahayana traditions, then you have to rely upon going for refuge as the foundation of your practice. So some people think that refuge is just like a vow you take. It's something that you do in the very beginning when you become a Buddhist. You take the refuge vow, and then they have no real interest or don't pay attention to ordinary kind of practice of refuge in a day-to-day practice. So they just think that it's like something you do in the beginning and then you don't do anything after that. But that's a big mistake. That's a mistake because refuge, going for refuge, is something that you start with and you continue to do until you attain Buddhahood.
아니 잡순 로와케 열 아니 제다 잡순 로와다 잠들 라서 넘버 지그고네 잠들 마소는 요래 잡순 로와다 다모 잠로 그죠 잠로 잡순 로와세고 잠로 제버세고 그죠 되네 아니 따다단데 잠로 그열 이봐 somebody 제다 잡순 로쳐 그래서 제바데 잠로 라자 따다티 넘버 지그고네 잠들 마소는 요래.
So when refuge is explained, it's talked about in 4 parts, which are the cause of going for refuge, the object to which one takes refuge, how to take refuge, and then the training in refuge. So those are those 4 sections.
korwatang ani je korwatang nesong ko dongar de da tamje jeki o jeki ta ne ta de jeki ta ne ta jamne ji gyo go yo ra ba ta de le tawar se ba ga jabla ne ani je konjo so me jabsun ro wa imba yin ju ta mo de ani je de ne je wa imba ri si.
And so there are 2 causes said to be there are said to be 2 causes for taking refuge, and those are fear and faith. So for the first, which is fear, one has a fear for the sufferings of samsara and of the lower realms. And if you have some fear, then you would think that you would look for some kind of protection or a refuge to provide you protection from that fear. And so in order to be liberated from that fear, one would seek a refuge or protection.
다 응송다 녀와야다 돌노가 소바 응송 그 동안에 제기 짜네 근데 건조선 잡순 줘봤대 아니 집 총무 그 잡고 이 말에 다네다 라니 집고 아니 제다 제가 난질라 소바 그 코르 동안에 제기 짜네 근데 내가 타원도 봐 그거네 근데 건조선 잡순 줘봤대 근데 집은 랭그 잡순 줘봤대 이 말에 라진 센지 말루바 랑다 아니 제 타예바가 센지 말루바 그 대다 코로아기다 제가 난질라 소바 코로아가 동아대다는 제지 짜네 어디 라진 센지 말루바 산지 된 코로아를 타는 산지 제 고마 토번더바 그 로기 되는 잡선 로와데 더바 제목 그거는 잡선 로와이 말이 되는 제 말인데 다시 더바 최종 그 장도세 난다 지우chen 천대 중성기 강의 장로 임바이나야 나머지 때 동안 강양으로 하는 제기다 델레 타원도 봐 로고네 되는 건 조선 잡선 좋아 되나네 장로 그죠 당분지 받을 텐데 이 말에.
So we have first those beings who are who fear the existence in the lower realms of samsara, of the hell realms, the hungry ghosts, and the animals, and wish to be freed from that and take refuge in order to be freed from the sufferings of the lower realms. And that's what we call the beings of the lower scope, or the lesser scope. And then the second wish to be freed from the sufferings of birth, aging, sickness, and death of samsara for themselves. So they wish to be free from samsara for themselves. And that's what we call the beings of middling scope, or middling capacity. Third, then, is those who wish for all themselves and all limitless beings without exception to be freed from all sufferings of samsara, birth, aging, sickness, and death, and that they all be completely freed from all suffering of samsara and ultimately attain the state of Buddhahood. And that's what we call the beings of greatest scope. So we can talk about that as either the refuge of the Hinayana, Mahayana, or sometimes it's talked about in this way, which is the way of the beings of the 3 capacities, or the beings of the 3 scopes. But in any situation, there's always some sort of fear, a fear of some state of suffering, and a wish to be liberated from that fear as a cause for taking refuge.
Benna, ta naranzo je lula nasanro je laba imayina. Di nasa ka donga delen di nasa ka donga len jiji ta 델 타원 더 그거는 가서 멤버 때 해요. 멤버는 뭐 멤버 때 해요. 어떤 대양티 나사때 그 동아지 성인들 대사월에 잡는 멤버다. 멤버다 때 해요. 어떠가나 이 그냥서지 코로가 그동안 되는 지기다 되는 타원도 봐 로지인데 저는 이제 그 있잖네 되는 쪽 토바데 코로가 그동안에 쪽 토바데 다 강요해서는 건조 좀 해봐야 이 말이 어떻게 되는지 저 담보 저거 그거는 잡선 거야 이 말이지.
And so, just like when we have some illness in our body, we have some fear about that illness and a wish to be freed from that illness, which leads us to go and rely upon a doctor. And so, who is it who's able to protect us or offer us refuge from illness? That is a doctor. And so, similarly, if we have a fear of the suffering of samsara and we wish to be freed from that, then who is it who can actually offer us protection? Who can actually free us from the suffering of samsara? And that is the three jewels.
또 전이보다 대바인 말에 근데 담목건조 그 연디 시바 그거는 아니 대나 당황 그 대바 그거는 잡선 로고 와인 말에 근데 단 타도 타바당 산지제 공방대 라디오를 토벌 대바 그건 대바 그 대바 그거는 잡선 로와인 말에 다음에 대바 더버 대바 되는 예치부 대바 세나다 나좀 감정 걸어 그 동안에 아니 쭉 통크인데 딱 건조선도 봐 매바인 말이 어떻게 된뒤 시는 되는 예치부 그거는 대바 그거는 잡선 로인데 저좀 니바트 대바 그거는 잡선 로와인 말에.
So that was the explanation of fear as a cause, and then the second cause is faith. And so, first faith is generated by knowing about the qualities of the three jewels, and that gives rise to what we call pure faith. And second then, when we have a genuine wish to attain the state of liberation and Buddhahood, then that's what we call the faith of yearning, or the faith of desiring that result. And then third is what we call the faith of real belief or trust. And that comes from knowing that only the three jewels can protect one from the three realms of samsara and having real conviction and faith in that. So that is the second cause of refuge, which is faith.
산지 주던 근는데 타반도 만남지자 소말이 소당 안조지 잠로 세인데 여러 강을 잡선 로이여리시는 다 번조선 잡선 로이여리 단다 가래겠던 지도 잡선 로이여리시는 안조지 코로와데 타르바가 지도 아니 잡선 로이여리 다 가래서는 코로와데 타르고 이여리시는 다 안조지 네 코로와기 제가 난제라소바기 동아래 아니 타르고 이여리 안조 아니 즉 이제 대화 타고 이여리 왔다 뒤동나 아니 잡선 로이 말이야.
And so there's a quote that says, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are the refuge for those wishing for liberation. And so the object to whom we go for refuge are the three jewels. And why is it that we would go for refuge to them? It is in order to be liberated from samsara. And why would we want to be liberated from samsara? Because we want to be free from all the sufferings of birth, aging, suffering, sickness, and death, and attain that state of ultimate happiness of Buddhahood. And so, as it says in the first line, what worldly gods, himself also bound in the prison of cyclic existence, is able to protect others? So, if they themselves are bound in samsara, how can they protect others from such a state, from samsara? And therefore, the undeceiving true object of refuge is the three jewels.
되는 콜로콜로나 지금 콜덴 밖에 망려와 되는 참선도 지금 콜로 동학이 잠소 생각 되는 거 소나 요래 되는 잠소세야 돼 자침보다 댄사 보인바 어디 춘송 그거는 콜와다 되니 배드 잔 되는 시에요. 되는데 제가 나름대로 제두 통화 매번 다다 그 말이 빠르다. 되네 까베 양 토리 라당 말라서 버는 제와라. 되네 까베 양 진행 송 녀와야다 돈으로서 버는 제와라. 너는 아니 전 로와 감소 단 로와를 돌다 되니 콜로콜라는 이메는 되니 코르데바 이 말이지. 단 콜와는 코르데바 까나 딱 동안에서 나서 코와를 마탈 거 받을 때 동안에 타와요 말이야. 되니 지금 남지 그 동안에 안 로당 다진 로와를 돌다 녀와다 가서 다 사랑 그 동안 야다를 지금 동안으로 단 로와를 강해지는 야다 레당 유몽 동하기 챙겨봐 되는지 이 말이 되니 이제 동안에서 그 자친구 댄서모 되는지 되는데 되는 진짜는 나와서 코르데바 이 말이 다들 타고나 다 본조선 the Jobson Rogo is.
And so sometimes samsara is referred to as a wheel. So it's just like a wheel that is turning. And sometimes it's referred to as the great ocean of suffering, and it's called the great ocean because it's so vast and deep. So it's given sometimes through different examples, samsara is described in different ways. But with the wheel, we have been turning in this wheel of samsara since beginningless time, and sometimes we reach the top, we reach the higher states or the pleasant states of gods and humans, and sometimes we fall back down into these lower states of the hells, animal realms, and the hungry ghosts. And so as long as we are still turning within these three realms of cyclic existence, then we have not been liberated from suffering. As long as we're in samsara, we are in suffering. So we can talk about the suffering of birth, aging, sickness, and death, or the other various particular sufferings that are said to be experienced by the different beings in the six realms, such as the sufferings of heat and cold for the hell realms, or the sufferings of hunger and thirst of the hungry ghosts, and so on. But all of these beings then are bound by karma and affliction. And if we wish to be liberated from this great and vast amount of suffering of samsara, then we need to take refuge in the three jewels.
Teni chula ni tabar doba ki lama tabar doba ka tadla teni be japsun roa da ta genete teni tabar doba ka drola tina ani drog soda ani teni be japsun roa ko imare.
And so how is it that we are to go for refuge? So we go for refuge to the Buddha as he who showed us the path to liberation, as the teacher, and to the Dharma as the method for attaining that liberation, and to the Sangha as the helpers or friends for our attaining of liberation.
Sanje meba imbayina ta maranso je taba ki lam taba ki tap tamuchu ma sunkinya ma lam tomba boyo ma tenu je sanje ki ta ma taba ki tap demba jala so ba go ne tenu ne sanje ki chutun koro ko ne taba ki lam tin indu tenu maranso je taba toban ba ka kanza namji tenu ne 다 산지기 송샤바기 뭐 산지라 안에 때 탈바가 람도 먹고 임바이 여바 임바리 대도 산지 람도 먹고 그거는 잡는 거가 임바리.
So if there was no Buddha,
대도 지 탈람 제다와 인가 돈 긴데 다 산지 마도 봐 돈통기 여마리 산지 마도 봐 대도 지 산지 아니 지 조단 제부가 남자 아니 탐진 침바 임바인데
So if there was no Buddha, then there would have been no one who showed the authentic path to liberation, because the only one who has shown or who can show the authentic path to liberation is the Buddha, as the Buddha is the omniscient one who knows all causes and effects. So the Buddha then taught the Four Noble Truths and so on, in order to show a path to all those beings who wish to strive for liberation.
what they and it Taba Draba Tabi Mari, did tap them around so can Yamsalama in Bayina, then it Taba Top Taba Mari, then the Chuda Tabaka Lami Mari.
And so that holy Dharma then is that path which was spoken by the Buddha, and that path then is the method by which we can obtain liberation.
Then Gendin data did Tabaka Lam and it Chuda Double Sevala, then it told Gavishinila Sobaki in it, and also Chula Sobama Lubna, then it gave a talk boy at the end, that Gendin.
And so the Sangha then are those who will, as spiritual guides and spiritual friends, help us in order to train in the Dharma. So they are the helpers on our path to liberation.
Taba runner out the Shigachi, someone Jin Bari, that's Sanjekam Nanzoma, Tabaka Lamdin Bari. What at the London Nanzo with Nyamsalama in Bayina and the Taba Totobali. The London Nyamso Malamba in Bayina, the Nanzo Tabatom Matoba in Bari.
And so when we say to obtain liberation, it's just like the quote that the Buddha said, "You should know that I have shown you the path to liberation. But whether you obtain that or not is up to you." And so the Buddha is he who has shown us the path. And if you put that path into practice, you can obtain liberation. And if you don't put it into practice, you won't.
The Kichi de and that Tabaka Lam de Lobjanse. The Lobjanse Shabaki Tabaki Lam Tatas of Jel and Yamsalina, then ya Tabatobali is in the Sanjik Sonia by Mother.
And so in Buddhism, the attainment of liberation cannot be obtained merely by supplicating to a deity or by making aspirational prayers for that. The most important point then in Buddhism is to study the path and then put that into practice in your own mind, and then one can obtain liberation.
Jin Matakola Sobalani, Ladani, Samsara, Japsamaroa. Then it Chula Japs of Soma in Bayana, Simjin and Sawapaya. Then it Ganela Japs of Soma in Bayana, then it draw member. That draw member city, draw Tawa Lobatan, that it in the Potopo Loktaji, that draw member the Marose at the Takichi, and it is the draw member key, Tapu to Sota, and Suzuki. Some of them Jubatas on Medivasena, and then Toying Maris. But the Jobaka Tabza Sony.
And so then once one has gone for refuge, then the fourth section is the training in refuge. So how is one to train once one has taken refuge? Once you've taken refuge, you have the refuge vow, and you need to put this into practice. And so the first trainings, the trainings which are to be accomplished, is that once you have taken refuge in the Buddha, you should no longer prostrate to or take refuge in other worldly deities, other deities. And once you've taken refuge in the Dharma, then you should abandon harming sentient beings. Once you've taken refuge in the Sangha, then you should abandon going out, associating with negative friends or bad friends. That is, those who have the wrong view and very negative behavior and wrong view.
Then that Gabu Labza Somte, Sanjik or Double Labza Somte, that Sanjik and Jola Jabs Somne, then I need to Sanjik Godina Subala, and Kubaseba. Tambe Chula Jabs Sombaina, and it is Sunabla Suba, the Sola Teneha, Kuba down. And it's Genden Jabs Sombaina, then it's Genden, drop Genden but the Zola, Yakuba Gogolis. The Nija in my Conjoson Betina, that's also Samsara, Chuba Prava, 야지 대바다 그바세야. 왔다 되네 말에.
And so those first three were the three trainings that you are like things to abandon, things to avoid. And the second three are things that you should accomplish or things that you should do in a more like positive note. So then the next three trainings are once you've taken refuge in the Buddha, then you should show respect to all different representations of the Buddha. Once you've taken refuge in the Dharma, then similarly you should pay respect and homage to the words of the Buddha or the texts of the Buddha. And once you've taken refuge in the Sangha, then similarly you should treat the Sangha with respect. So with any representations of or supports to show, to support like in an altar representations of the three jewels, then you should make prostrations and offerings to those representations.
Then that champion 그 답자신다 다 몸보여 봐인 바래. 된도 지금 남진 jamron다야. 아니 생진신 jam로가 답자는 거야. 다 몸보지 여봐인 바래. 다 된니까 내가 그래서 초도 용마 임바이는 니가 나면 더 그래. 다 찍도 가래리스나 아니 추는 돈은 세바 대빈식 만남지송 세나 추나 담을 추나 만세바 세바메바. 된지가 남나 산지가 마송이리스. 된지제 임바이인데 나는 속지 남진 아니 이제 막 저번 세바메바 송만나 이기 생기는 세바도 막 방고 요리. 되는 니바때 아니 생긴 거가 마도 자와지가 탑심이 손을 쫀juk 넘는 된지 송이라. 생긴 거 생긴 거와 대마도 바게 인산지 지가 탑시여 말이지. 대도 이제 생긴이는 팽다고 그러지. 대도 이제 생긴이는 너바방이야다. 생긴이는 팽바더야. 어떤 대니 아무 좀 직장으로 가서 내가 나오대. 내 저거 대니 차려요 말.
And so generally there are a lot of other trainings that are described in the texts for what you're supposed to do or not do in terms of having taken refuge. But generally they're like you should recite the refuge prayer and you should help explain refuge to other people. But if we can condense all the trainings of refuge into two things, the two main points are abandoning harming other beings and then helping other beings. So there's a a quote that says, other than pleasing beings, other than bringing them to happiness, the Buddha has no other method or no other activity. So the point then is that these 2 points contain all the key points of all the trainings in refuge, which are to abandon harming beings and then to help beings or to make beings happy.
되네면 이제 당 안서 저당 진 남바 쓰인데 다 따와 땡진저 번중 아니 곰바 산다 닝지 다 저번 세와 메바 스나 아니 지성은 두대가 이 말이지.
And so in Buddhism all of Buddhist practice or theory can be brought into 3 points, and those are the view of interdependence, the meditation of love and compassion, and the conduct of abandoning harm.
That's the ma only chief chumukalam, Tembari Della Shinda Zokan, Song Domana, double legend of Tobeson, there's a soul party of Magilla, Nayam was Jaselani somebody.
And so now we move into the verse on explaining the being of lesser capacity. The subduer said that all the unbearable suffering of the 3 lower realms is the fruition of wrongdoing. Therefore, never committing negative deeds, even at peril to one's own life, is the Bodhisattva's practice.
랭곡다 고주고 동아 신주가와 그때니 동아 요리 신선선 어떻든 신선선 동아때 수주바리시나 때를 진직된 거반보나고 그 인종해요 말이 다 어느 동아때 강나티는 소모리스는 저 먹여버려 봐도 되는 소마인 말이스 더블
And so, as it says, the unbearable sufferings of the three lower realms. So, what are those sufferings? So it said that the beings in the hell realms face the unbearable suffering of heat and cold, and the hungry ghosts have the sufferings of hunger and thirst, and animals have the suffering of ignorance or stupidity, as well as being put to use in terms of being pack animals and so on. And so who is it that created that suffering? There's no one that created it. There's no creator of this world that created suffering for them. So where did it come from? The suffering that they're experiencing is coming from the cause of having accomplished non-virtuous activities.
Dupa lokor yimbate ne tende luji mageba son tene zön chama tsuk mancher ten nalka mageba je tene napsen nösen lokda te yiji mageba son de ani mageba jo yimbate.
So if we condense all of the non-virtues, they can be contained within a list of 10. So first are the 3 of body, which are killing, taking what's not given, and sexual misconduct. And then the 4 of speech are lying, speaking harsh words, idle or pointless speech, and speaking ill of others. And then the 3 of mind then are covetousness, harmful intention, and wrong view.
Tana da shedam ko na lan ani mageba jo joba yimba na ani nyarwa jewa yimba re tana ta dan din do cha ko na lan ani mageba jo joba yimba na yeda da jewa ta tana tomo ko na lan mageba jo ani joba yimba na ani tonro da jewa se he yoris dinji je yimba yimbe ta son son da jewa se ba jo ani le da ka de se na jo doja shedan tomo songe kona lang ne tene ta di kona lang yongba ki ta lunga le mageba chubote ani sabwa yimba yin ne son son ji he yoris tindi je yimba yin de desa so la pa jang si ta tu tarine song de ta je so la pa jang mageba le te so nga ka bang yin ani je kan to je mageba le te document san tamja se ani mageba le te so so ki 간 토독 거네 마 먹어봐 빵 개와다 drop what in the google there's a sort of pattern magile 나면 뭐지 자셀라니 서 어떻게 집 총목을 남 송말에 집 총목을 남 송들 다 나랑 제가 참아다 안에 제 내성 냐와여도 돈돌아서 뭐기 된진 내성 거네라 짜네 아니 제 델 타원들 밖으로 내성의 타원들 밖으로 없잖아 다 집 총목으로 세트님 송여래 대 아니 진리가 때문에 되는 먹여봤죠 빵 개왔죠 drob인데 개왔죠 drob아 임바이나 토리를 제버세 봐 임바리 먹여봤죠 빵인데 아니 나는 좀 내 손에 막 먹여봤어 봐 차고요 진리제 임바인데 다때 집을 총먹을 남 손에 되는 손이요.
And so then with a intention of anger or hatred, if one commits one of these negative actions, then one will be born in the hell realms. And with a motivation of desire, or then if one commits one of these 10 non-virtues, then one will be born as a hungry ghost. And with a motivation of ignorance, if one commits one of these 10 non-virtues, one will take birth in the animal realm. So, what is the karmic action, and how does this take place? So, being motivated by one of these 3 poisonous minds, if one engages in one of these non-virtues, then one will take birth into one of these 3 lower realms accordingly. And so, this is what is referred to then as the path of the being of lower capacity, because the being of lower capacity wishes to, so they have a fear of taking birth into one of these three lower realms in a future existence in their next birth. And so because they have that fear, then they have the wish to be liberated from the three lower realms. And that's what we call the mind or the intention of the being of lower capacity. And so their practice then is, because they have that wish to be freed from the three lower realms, then they wish to, they are going to practice the abandoning of the 10 non-virtues and the adopting of the 10 virtues. And by abandoning the 10 non-virtues, they are abandoning the causes to be born in the lower realms. They will abandon the lower realms. And by accomplishing the 10 virtues, then they are accomplishing the rebirth into the higher realms. So it says then that even at the peril of one's life, to never commit negative deeds. So one should, even at the cost of one's life, avoid committing any of these 10 negativities. So one should strive as much as possible to avoid any of these 10 negativities. And that is said to be then, even at the peril of one's life, is the Bodhisattva's practice.
동네냐와 될 집을 총을 남 소말에 단 토리스인데 라다 라마니 메 그리 띵 som데는 토리섬 있는 데를 저여로 도와줘 조건은 토리섬 있는 데지 다때 토버세바 그 조그 조어데 다 겨워져 조고 해야돼 르거부안에 진거 소자바 근데 진나 진바동아 근데 처럼성아 대 르거게 섬세 되는 나게 거는 저 덴바나와 저 님바나와 yinga chik kuba yoba ke chik kecha sheba. Tene yingi ta de karsin de yin kanza matunba te so ani soso ki chot kumba domna ani chik tende ke chen tunba ke kecha sheya. Tene namjun donda tenba se yinde chik katong debju la soba. Wata tende saya te ani nga kama geba jiyase. Tene ye chik geba somte tene chik samba nyingji. Then the Jipping and the Tawa said the legendary Yantawa and Yichiba. What a day la dead and then the Chunchushi. What a tenegomat Yichi gave us some say. What a day Mageva Japan gave a church at Japan Bayana, then gave us some and sound of Majeva, and then Tori the Jiggeries. What a day Lamsana, Jichunga Lamson, the new song.
And so, to the path of that lesser being then is the path of trying to not be born into the three lower realms and trying to be born into the higher realms, or the fortunate realms. And those fortunate realms are what we call the realms of the gods, the demigods, and humans. So when we talk about the 6 realms of existence, those are the 3 higher realms or fortunate realms. And in order to obtain those, then one must practice the 10 virtues. And so the 10 virtues are protecting life, giving generously, protecting one's discipline. Those are the 3 of body. And then the 4 of speech are speaking truthfully, speaking pleasantly, speaking in a way that brings people together, and speaking in accordance respectfully. And then the 3 of mind then are love, compassion, and then what's called the authentic worldly view. The authentic worldly view is the belief in the process of karmic cause and result. And they sometimes combine that together with having lesser desire and contentment. And so by practicing those 10 virtues, by abandoning the 10 non-virtues, one will not take rebirth in the lower realms, and by accomplishing the 10 virtues, one will take rebirth in the fortunate realms. And the practice of the adopting the 10 and abandoning the other 10 is the practice or the path of the being of lesser capacity or lesser scope.
Sisom Deva, Tsatsi Sarvaji, Yutanshi, Kanjipi Chutin, 남용 먼저 탈북 공방교 동등녀로 자세라니 숨어래.
So next is the beings of middling capacity, of middle capacity. And so it says here, the pleasure of the triple world, like a dewdrop on the tip of a blade of grass, is imperiled in a single moment. Striving for the supreme state of never-changing liberation is the Bodhisattva's practice.
That's sonde 다다리 지우 중국을 나고 값을 다 맞아. 제가 선마는 손은 맞지가. 아니 지금 토리를 제 토바 같은 게 비싼 땅 많이 말이야. 다 얘네양 다 토리 라다 말라서 거기 고만 토바 임바 얘네양. 아니 코로아도 저당 코로아기 아니 코로아기 동할래 만대바 임바리다. 감성단 로버도 칸네 제네양 아니 지금 코로아기 동할래 만대바 임바리. 다네 아니 이제 단 토리라서 봐 제와 임바 있네양. 아니 따따단데 동화송 그 젠데바 임바라와 레다뇽 데인도 코로바다 첸데바 임바리. 데리제 임바인데 아니 이제 시솜데와 짜지서바 인 요점시 근지 붙이지 다당 안 소지인데 라다 맞아서 봐근 토리 그 데지라 롱제 데바 있네양. 아니 데 코란킹 모데 다 코로바근 모데 동화이 말이와 데인도 동화래 만데바 임바리. 아니 동화래 만데바 임바 마제 아니 지금 토리 그 대화도 소양 아니 지금 여러가 동안이 말에 다 다른 안에서 지금 토리 라다 말아서 그 대지를 롱제 대바 임바이는 양 아니 다 계지가 다 빼는 안존라고 제 임바이는 마룬라고 지 선바지고 여바 임바이는 양 서론라고 지 선바 마지고 송한다고 다 다른라고 내가 여바 임바이는 양 산이라고 내가 쇼송한다고 다 다른라고 아니 지 수보 임바이는 양 산이라고 양 들이 정본라고 차송아 아니 다 다른다고 지는 상마지 된지 다 된지는 마다바인 말에 수말이 되는데 요자 제근제 구치지 된지 말인데 다 코로아 감성 게다 토리를 제나래 다 아니 감성 로아도 강하지는 양 아니 지네 차번들지 그 동안 저로아 그 동화 그 동화 어떻게 동안에 만대바당 어때다 단지 토리 그 대지 되다 단지 마다바인 말 된지 임마인데 되네 다 나도 이제 동안에 마타바인 말이야. 되는 임마인데 남용 먼저를 세대 뒤 남용 지금 여러 매바게 대화 동안에 띵에 타와지거나 다 가리고 리스나 타고 공방 타고 그리 어다 때에도 이제 코로와레 라니 코로와레 탈때 되는 이제 타와가 공방 동는이와 어다 대 동는이는 되는 대 타와가 탑되었대 다 지금 랭글람 신의 되는 소말에
And so then those beings of lesser capacity wish to avoid taking birth in the lower realms and obtain a rebirth in the fortunate realms. But even though we have obtained such a rebirth in these higher realms, of the realms of the gods and humans, it still has not gone beyond, that state is still not gone beyond the sufferings of samsara. Wherever one is born in the three realms, or as it's sometimes called the six realms or the three realms of samsara, either way, one is not liberated from suffering. They are still bound by the three types of suffering. So even if we are experiencing and enjoying the bliss or the comforts of the higher states of gods and humans, the essence of that is still suffering. It is not beyond suffering. Because that comfort, that bliss of the higher realms is still the suffering of change. Even though we may be experiencing that happiness in just one moment, it's subject to change. We can be happy in the morning and sad or discomforted in the afternoon. We can have a job today and lose it tomorrow. Our body can be fine in the morning and today and very unhealthy tomorrow. And so wherever we're born in the three realms or in the six realms of beings of samsara, we are still pervaded by the pervasive suffering of conditionality, the suffering of change, and the suffering of suffering. And we are not going beyond that impermanent state. We're not going beyond suffering. And if we want to obtain the never-changing state of liberation, as it says in the text, then we have to obtain actual liberation. So we have to strive for that liberation of never-changing liberation. And so this then is describing the path of the middling capacity being. And so then the practice or idea of the being of lesser capacity again was that they wish for themselves to avoid taking rebirth in the lower realms and obtain rebirth into the higher realms, and they do that by adopting the 10 virtues and abandoning the 10 non-virtues. And then for the beings of this middling capacity, they wish for their own liberation, not only from the lower realms, but from all suffering of samsara. And for themselves, to attain that, then they practice the teachings of the Four Noble Truths and the 12 Links of Dependent Origination. So now we move into the being of the greatest capacity, which is primarily the practice of the Bodhisattva or Bodhichitta. So the text reads, "When mothers who have been kind to one since beginningless time are suffering, what's the use of one's own happiness? Therefore, generating the mind of enlightenment in order to liberate limitless beings is the Bodhisattva's practice." And so here, the wish for oneself to be freed from the lower realms was the view of the being of lesser capacity, and the wish for oneself to be liberated from all suffering of samsara was the attitude of the being of middling capacity. But here, with the being of greatest capacity, then it's said then what would be the point? What's the purpose of obtaining liberation just for yourself, when since beginningless time and all the way up to now, all of these limitless sentient beings have been kind to me, have been loving to me, have been my mother and father, and it's said that no being has not been my mother and father since beginningless time, if we think back to beginningless time. And so, if I think about that, then what good is my own personal liberation if all of them are still suffering?
지원 랭그 세대다 라니 지고 코와를 타와 동는 년도야 대양 롱랭 저기 말이죠. 님도 랭 상어지 다 집에 침모 세는데 다 님도 빼 침모인 말이 선정만 잡아 걸로 사실 타 예바가 생기 담제 조고 산지지 공방을 코와를 아니 타는 코와를 더데 타바도 공방 그 거기 디치도 때는 아니 라니 산지지 공방 동는 년도로 어떻게 집에 침모 세 되는 무슨 요리다 뭐 딜로 되나 아니 산초가 샘 되는 무슨 요리 then semjipan yendong so yanda zogo samjongdo songba na yindi semji se gandeje de gogo yese na ta yendong de ani semji ta yeba ge semji ge dong de then rani sanje je gomba dong de ni then sanje je gomba toba ge yogla then ta yeba ge semji de da ani sanje je gomba ge sa goban de ba de lo what the sanjo ge sam sin de tenji de song yese.
And so we can think about this in terms of the strength of mind or the strength of the intention behind these different beings. So the being of the lowest capacity only wishes for one's own liberation from the lower realms, which is a smaller motivation or a smaller power of mind. And the being of middling capacity wishes also for one's own self, but wishes for one's own self to be liberated from all suffering of samsara, which is a slightly more powerful motivation. And then the greatest being has a unimaginably vast scope and power of mind to wish to liberate all sentient beings, limitless sentient beings, and place them into that state of liberation. And in order to do that, they wish for and strive for the attainment of Buddhahood, so that with that attainment of Buddhahood, they really can place all sentient beings into Buddhahood. And that's what's referred to as Bodhichitta, which is that wish to attain Buddhahood in order to place all other sentient beings into the state of liberation.
다 상족산 다 대차도 여봐이 말이야. 저당은 이제 산지가 dropa 산지제 공방 dropa 세번 저도 진 망보지 여봐이 말이야. 근데 무지 다 태가 그지 저던 제거 산지에 저던 제거 근 제거 차대 그 무지대 아니 상족산이 말이야. 다저 상족산대 나서 그냥 좀 말랑와 이마이나 다 제거 그 산지 공방 토에 매봐이 말이야. 저 매봐는 제거 용 무시버로 추탄게 이제 준비해 드리라 라래 되바 이 말이야. 근데 이제 딱 버르는 뭐지 그 송. 요는 산제들로 대초봐. 민은 산제들로 탑제봐. 산제들로 무좀만 넣어. 남다 산조 생각 집어쇼 송 많아 나와나진데. 다 요나 산조 그 산도 여봐 이 말이나. 다 산제 이제 공방 들어가서 봐. 대초고 그 초바지. 초그레스. 다 민은 다 탑차 되바데 가려져 있으나 yenda gewa mambo yori te maris yenda tap chap de ba chibote sanjo ksam den sanjo ksam go mujo manawate sanje go mujo manawate sanjo ksam ji som de som na yi mare.
And so for any person who is striving for the attainment of Buddhahood, then generally it's said that there are many causes and conditions for the attainment of Buddhahood, but it's said that bodhicitta is the most important. Because bodhicitta is the primary or direct cause of Buddhahood. And without the cause of bodhicitta, there can be no result of Buddhahood. As we know, all things rely upon causes, and without a cause, you cannot have a result. And so it's just like this quote from Pacha Rinpoche, where he says, for obtaining Buddhahood, if you have bodhicitta, just that is sufficient. And if you don't have it, then there's no possible way. It's in a aspiration prayer. So he says at the end, may I give rise to bodhicitta, the unerring cause of Buddhahood.
카드 종족 그 작게 조세들 성에 봐요. 같이 먹기. 산조 그 산데라. 톤제된 양님이지. 다때문에 바가 나게 지는 공무원, 조람 공무원, 조킨 공무원, 사키 공무원, 공자게 돈바 돈이 이제 망보지 시에 되나요? 님보 자신요 말이지. 미진다가 칼라 종소여로 종바 종바하고요. 천 종바 천으로 천으로 네 종소 그 작파 상마 소로 네 가능도 로쇼
The big Ready, of course, so yeah, the point is, so Pater Rinpoche also said, this is a funny quote, so if someone practiced all of these practices of the great perfection, creation and completion, and they didn't have bodhicitta, if they hadn't given rise to bodhicitta, they should just take all the shit from their city and shove it in their mouth. He didn't use a pleasant word in the Tibetan, so he didn't say a pleasant word in English. So if you're not practicing bodhicitta, then there's no point in talking about all these other practices.
아니 맞어. 되는 제부지 산지지 공부하시는데 영시버로 개모셔야 그 계절로. 나서진 배나 제부지 다 가래지 이마이는 제부지 동네는 뒤저 요거로. 다 좀에 보면 제부지 고스는 개모셔라는 듯이. 어때 빠들 뭐지 그다 막 개모셔야 그 갑좀 개모셔야 그 팀이 송이지.
And so if we want to strive for Buddhahood, then we have to practice that which is the primary cause or direct cause of Buddhahood. And so if you work towards something without applying its cause, then it's impossible for its result to come about. It's just laughable. And so therefore, Pater Rinpoche was kind of scolding people in a humorous way by saying this.
어떻든지 말이야. 다들 산조가 선는 냠슬라마 임바이나? 나한테 산지가 무주대 doctor 임바래. 근데 뒤에 산조가 산 평용대 준주가 레버 담고 평용 레버 끝나나 답변 멍보송이래. 산조가 산 깨정 맞지 죄를 제와 임바이는 양. 뒤가봐 멍보가 아니 더버서 다봐. 아니 저 가봐 멍보가 초대서 아니 뒤 산조가 산 깨정 맞지 죄를 제와 산지양. 아니 뒤 초대서 사투리스나 다 평용 왜 준주 제가 마음바 다들 준주 그 레버 담고 나는 배 먹고 손이래 평용도.
And so if you practice bodhicitta, then you are practicing the primary and direct cause of Buddhahood, and you're able to accomplish that primary cause. And all of the benefits of bodhicitta are explained in the first chapter of the Bodhicharyavatara, or the Way of the Bodhisattva. And so it's said there are many benefits explained in there, but for example, if one practices bodhicitta even just for one moment, then it's said that many eons of negativities are purified, and many eons of gathering of the accumulations are accomplished. So sometime in the future, you all should have a look at the first chapter of the Bodhicharyavatara, which is called the Benefits of Bodhicitta.
다산 조선대로 파이에 영화이 뭐이나 오고군의 예와이나 딱 몸바심지든 주바심지는 단 남만이 손요레스.
And so we can divide bodhicitta by its essence into two kinds of bodhicitta: the bodhicitta of aspiration and the bodhicitta of engagement.
단 몸바심지시도 아니지 심비 인동도 산지제 공통 토번도 바kal로 대라 아니 몸바심지시는 되는 손요레.
And so the aspirational bodhicitta is the wish to obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of other beings. So that's mainly a mental state. It's a thought or an aspiration or a wish.
단 조바 심지 신데 다 심지 진동도 아니 지 산지제 공방 동든 예로 아니 뒤 로점 많이 봐기 아니 지 진동도 조바 산지 공방 토버도 봐 뒤치도 되는 거 아니죠 지 진소 파르도 심바 돌아서 봐 냠슬니 민다 삼바잠보세야 아니 이제 심지 이제는 로바세야 핑다야 어찌 딘지게다 산주 섬바기 쥐어봤다 손 냠슬래야 어다 딘딜라 조바 심지 신디스모요.
And then the engaged bodhicitta is striving to obtain the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of others, and it's not just the intention, but actually in order to obtain perfect Buddhahood for the sake of others, it is the practice or the direct engagement in the practices of the six perfections, generating altruistic intention, helping others, and engaging in the other types of helpful or beneficial behaviors, conduct.
대단 조바 심지 배대진도 땅안서 이제 산지 연동도 산지 공만 토반다바기 아니 다 사와는 무슨 조바 어떤 때는 조바 심지 생각되는 소매요.
And then in the way of the Bodhisattva, Shantideva explains by way of an example. He gives the example to explain the difference between aspirational and engaged bodhicitta by saying it's like wanting to go somewhere and actually going there. And you should know the distinction as such. So it's just like if the difference between wanting to go to India and going to India. And so wanting to go to India is just like the intention to wish to obtain Buddhahood for the sake of other beings, where actually going to India is actually engaging in an activity that's going to get you there. So in the same way, then that is like the engagement in the conduct or the activities of the Bodhisattvas in order to obtain Buddhahood for the sake of others.
근데 도망 안 좋은데 너무 교신이라 소박을 정면 이제 산주 선덤도 마셔 아니 산주 저도 샘지 근데 이제 산주 선박을 냠슬린 거예요. 다들 냠슬린 버세발라 아니 이제 다 산주 샘 냠인 그 탑대라 되네 당 제준 선방고 몰래 마 제친 쭈박이 주네 마 주용 바텔라 점점면나 된거네 되네 산주 샘 제제탑 아니 되는 냠이 손여 봐 임바데 되네 제준 잠배양네 마 주용 바기 사모타주 그로가 되네 다진 제와다 다진 냠바니다 다들 인지 번제 마기 되네 타다 띠나 되네 롭정도 띠나 되네 산주 샘 제제탑 되네 손여 봐 임바데.
And then we should first receive the Bodhisattva vows from a spiritual master and then put into practice the trainings in Bodhicitta. And the methods for practicing Bodhicitta then come from two different lineages. So there's the one that came down from the protector Maitreya in his lineage, which is called the Vast Activities lineage. And it's called the Sevenfold Instructions of Cause and Effect. And then there's the second lineage, which comes down from Manjushri, that's called the lineage of the Profound View. And in that, we have the instructions of exchanging self and others, equalizing self and others, and considering others as more precious than oneself. And so these are the methods for actually giving rise to bodhicitta.
다 준제 메나든 시대네 토마네 담보 마시바 신 되네 심지대다 담제 마시바 되네 아니 이제 디스텐테바 되네 이제 텐테데다 드네즈 텐조그라 드네다 파서 소나 텐조 되네 아니 이제 용그 삼바 닝지 되네 라고 삼바 아니 산조선 세나와타 저
And so then the sevenfold cause and effect instructions are First is to recognize all beings as having been your mother. And then having seen all beings as your mother, there is the remembering the kindness of your mothers. And once you have remembered that kindness, you will develop the wish to return or repay their kindness. And when you wish to repay that kindness, then you will then meditate on love, compassion, and superior intention and bodhicitta. So that's called the sevenfold cause and effect instructions. So it's great if you can actually follow specifically the instructions of these sevenfold cause and effect instructions. But even if you can't, there's a way of practicing, because it's important. What's important is to be able to see all beings as having been kind to you and important to you. And the best way to do that is if you can know them as your mothers, if you can see them as your mother. In that instance, it becomes much easier to generate love for them. But even if you're not able to do that, you can understand in a different way how they are important to you, how they have been kind to you, how you rely upon them. So even if we think about just our own comfort and happiness just in this life in a worldly sense, then without relying upon other sentient beings, we can't earn a livelihood. We have to rely upon others, even just in our worldly sense. Even if we just want to get a cup of coffee, even if we were a billionaire, we couldn't go get a cup of coffee on our own without relying upon other beings. And so, and in a dharmic sense then, as well, if we are going to practice all of these various dharma practices without relying upon others, then we can't practice love, because who are we generating love for? We're generating love for others. Compassion, as well as all the practices of the 6 perfections. For example, generosity. Who are we going to give to if not to others? How is it that we are going to practice patient forbearance if it's not for others? And so in the Bodhicharyavatara, again, Shantideva says that in order to obtain Buddhahood, the Buddha himself and sentient beings are equal in importance to us, are equal in their kindness to us. And how is that? That is that the Buddha showed us the path of how to practice, but the object with whom we're practicing or to whom we're practicing is sentient beings. Without those others, as I said before, how is it that you can generate love? How is it you can generate compassion? How can you practice patient forbearance? How can you practice generosity, which are these causes, which are the path of the Buddha, without these others? So even if we can't see them as our mother, which is the best way, then we can still, using other ways, see the importance and the necessity and the kindness that these beings offer to us. And so realizing that then, it's not only the reality that's true that they are that, but that also can be the method that we use to practice this instruction, because any person who is a person of kind of good conduct or good behavior, once they have recognized that someone has been kind to them, they also recognize that they owe that person a debt of gratitude, and that they will wish to repay that person. And so that is how we can generate, by recognizing the importance and the kindness of those beings, we can recognize our need to return the favor or to repay them. And so we can see that as a benefit in terms of helping our Dharma practice, in terms of this exact presentation of you have to recognize the kindness and then repay the kindness. But also it just has a benefit when we can think in this way. It has a very strong benefit just on our normal mind, in our character. People who are practicing in this way have a very relaxed and peaceful mind. They're naturally happy. And a lot of people who have mental illness and other kind of discomfort or unhappy minds, they have an opposite sense where they are always thinking that other people are harming them instead of thinking that people are kind to them. And so we need to know that all these beings are helpful to us, that they are kind to us. And then we will generate that wish to return that favor. And then in that way we are able to continue in this path of the cause and effect instructions. And so it's still best if you can recognize and follow the entire instruction and seeing them all as the mother. But even if you can't, you can follow this type of instruction and get to the same conclusion.
Tananda, that's a new sim. What are the new young land? That's a new somebody loves a yoga in body. Then the mumble loves a semi jogumshing, Sinata, Mumba Semjite, and the loves at the Kariniam Lingo Yorisina. That's semi gongo yori, somebody. Samba, Ningi, Gawa, Tanyam Jipo, the gongo, please. Mumba loves a yoga. Dupa semji ka labza tela, Peril the Simba Drog Nyamcha Ningo Gris, that Jimba Tonya, Tsuram Sonya, Zoba Gonya, Zundu Zanya, something in Nyamba Yoya, and it in the Shirap, Tusan Gonzong Shirap Jula, and Nyamcha Lena. What a Tindi Mare. What a Tisanjo San Dordiba Tindi Mare.
And so then when we are going to put bodhicitta into practice, it's said that there are trainings specific to the bodhicitta of aspiration and that of engagement. So the training in practicing aspirational bodhicitta is the practice of the 4 immeasurable thoughts of love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And the training in the engaged bodhicitta is the practice of the 6 perfections of generosity, discipline, patient forbearance, diligence, meditation, and the hearing, contemplation, and meditation. That is the 3 components of wisdom. And now we move into the exchange of self and other. All suffering, without exception, comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. Therefore, completely exchanging one's own happiness for the suffering of others is the Bodhisattva's practice. And so, all suffering without exception, whether we're discussing the sufferings of body and mind of this life or the sufferings of the lower realms of future lives, all of these sufferings have the root in self-grasping mind or self-cherishing mind.
Tendi ki kansa tendi ki jula gadu je yimba yin yang ani samba ji ko zawa ne yong toya yong gadu yin ta na ji chang do le sa yang ji sim chi sam ko to bo ani ji sam ngam da ani ji ta tendi ki sam khang ki ani ji tendi kanga mangbo ji tendi mangbo ji kanga te ne song yu sin zu chi ju de da jin zhe de lo shok chen bo yu de ba da danzen chemo yu de ba de na ne de samba ma ji ba mambo yang ne tene be de song yu ris.
And so the many of these sufferings of body and mind come from having a very strong sense of self-grasping or self-cherishing. Having that sense that I need happiness for myself, that I always need something, or always concerned with the self. A person with such a strong self-grasping is never happy. Always thinking that I need to get something or I need something is a very narrow state of mind that instills a lot of worry and fear. And many of these types of disturbances of mind are primarily coming from a very strong sense of self-cherishing.
Japan toyari, Zhenxi yari, Boko tong yari, Juba Mawin tayari, Nanji Vijay, Nanzo di Namji, Dende Tamamobo, Nabosaya Tang, Dende Vijay, Jitin, Nanjo Mambuchi Songa, but then Mambuchi, 나야 보지 차고 삼마글로도 쇼점고지 르티나 딘디가다 노트로글레가 뭐고진 좀 여리지.
And similarly,
저단제 다진진신은 다 저단가 직다 강자 수인바 있나요? 다 나로지 상적 삼바 많이 바가 강자 남진 그 미수인 바 있나요? 다 고차도 삼바장 여러 봐. 얘는 제일 가성하기 다진제 란치고 뭐 삼마 돈 핀다. 그냥 다제도 배 전부여 봐. 뭐다 딘디 그 진라. 내가 있는 노트만 보도 소문 여리지.
And so similarly, a lot of these
당장 같이 쇼체바 이마이나요. 뉴몬 대장 쇼체모여 봐. 뉴몬 대장 뉴몬 망보 줄지 뭐여라. 다 뉴몬 망보 다 뉴몬 쇼체모지 여바다 때는 그때 노트 망보 지를 버려지.
So similarly, a lot of mistaken behaviors and activities come about because of this as well. Thievery, lying, deception, drug use. A lot of the just worldly mistakes that are made because of this sense of always wishing for the best for yourself. And just to say again, or to clarify something, that of course anyone who's not an authentic bodhisattva is going to have the wish that I want something good for myself. That's going to happen. But what we're talking about here is having a very over the limit, an excessive amount of self-cherishing that is only for oneself and is kind of out of control or excessive. And so as strong as one's self-cherishing mind is, to that limit one will also have that many afflictions. And as strong as one's afflictions are, the more mistaken activities that they're going to engage in as a result of those afflictive emotions.
Lila nasa mambo yung nye mo po yadang lila tindi semki nyumong dan semkan semmadewa tindi ka kangal tina tindi lila jik tindi kenser dang tindi ne mandawa jiya ta mambo do tindi je indu jik chen jik lu sem dang tindi tere ta jik pen zasang jik nyoran lo jik yinba yina ya mang che shu de jik dangzhen shok chenpo da jinze shok chenpo ta jik zasang kanyang longwa da jik da jinze shok chenpo yoba yinba yina 또 참 차상기 잠비 차상은 양 마대로 소리 강마다 녀라 마무지를 해. 되는지 이제 다 센터의 스마다 아니 동한 말이 받대다 아니 다된도 소원이 말이지.
And so with such strong self-cherishing, with such strong self-grasping, then someone will not be very happy. And the afflictions that come together with that strong self-grasping lead one into a lot of mistaken behaviors. And as a result of all of this unhappiness and disturbance of the mind, also many sicknesses can come to the body, such as cancer and many other illnesses are related to disturbances in the mind. And we can think as well into, for example, difficulties within a marriage, within a couple, that most of the problems that will come about in a marriage are because of self-grasping and self-cherishing. So if you have a family or a couple, and one of them is having very strong self-grasping or self-cherishing, then they're going to have disturbances, they're going to have problems. And so many of these disturbances, many of these difficulties and sufferings, difficulties in both this life and in future lives are all coming from self-grasping or self-cherishing.
그 선데 네 쇼치모 여러 제와 임바이나 근데 아니 디미티 선 거양 보여 봐 뭐도 주진이야 보여 봐 근데 가도 임바이나 지 미지나 성동도 봐 미지나 생코스 봐 미지나 samze gomta ba tinji je imbayindu ta soso imbayinayo samba jibo chagris samba koyamba samba jita ta me be hindop chimbo yoba tene tinji beta semni sangwa de jinji hon yore tene bewa betyan ya ne ta de dosu ale tinji majina jin pain ta bondo ba ki ni lo de je to ba imbayina 근데 추그 때문에 다 상반 인지당 더 벌어도 심바 쪽 찾아 되는 민용이요. 근데 조고 산지 진빈선 좀. 근데 데스 다데 진저 동하다 양다 제와 제셀라니 다 대원도 바기 다 진진 로데다. 아니 데 쇼초노도 아니 지 기본 점바 로데서 아니 쇼체르도. 근데 대당 다 다게 대화되다 담지 진지 인가 동화되다 담지 달래 대니지 다지지 어떻게 제세 산주서만은 라딘이 손을 드는 손이요.
And so one then should minimize one's self-cherishing mind and increase the concern for others. And if one can do that, then they obtain a very open and spacious mind, a mind that has a lot of patience, a mind that naturally turns towards the needs of others, and that can very easily meditate on love and compassion for others, and also very naturally makes them happy and courageous. And if we think of it in terms of the virtuous qualities then as well, from that mind of altruism come these qualities of love, compassion, and all the practices of the 6 perfections. And therefore, that's why it said then, the perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. Therefore, completely exchanging one's own happiness for the suffering of others is the Bodhisattva's practice. And so one is to minimize the wishing for one's own happiness, turn the attention towards the concerns of others, and then exchange one's happiness for the suffering of others, and that's the Bodhisattva's practice.
rang dedo la sankor da tona seba naji teni sembi yin dewa da dona to so la nga so tona da sankor teni gogri sina da jin nyaba ni teni be so mi ba ina.
So in the Bodhicharyavatara, which is the way of the Bodhisattva, in that text the equalizing self and other is taught first. And so if one can think that just like oneself doesn't wish for suffering and wishes for happiness, all sentient beings are equal in wishing for happiness and not wishing for suffering. And so thinking of that, it's easy to gain that equality in understanding that everyone wishes equally for avoiding suffering and attaining happiness.
What in the Junjin and Summer Tana, the young chip Dart and Jinky, there what the Donatas on it, Jin, the ne Ram Legend, and it is simply Jinky, the Dola, Sankorda, Tonase, and it is simply Jin and it is Robase. What at the Daji Jawaki in the top on your way, mother.
And then when you first have that, and then secondly understand that self-cherishing is the source of all faults and difficulties, and that cherishing others is the source of all qualities, then you can practice the exchange of self and others, where you will begin to be able to turn your attention towards that altruistic intention and that wish to help others. And these practices are taught very extensively in the way of the Bodhisattva, starting with the equalizing self and other, then exchanging self and other, and then cherishing others more than oneself.
다 진도 코너 접사들 다 산지대 프로발 타는 이제 산지지 공부 접선은 근데 양 타이에 봐 생비가 동되는 문제들 이제 된지 다 된지 다진지와기 준신다 페인트는 상담은 다진지와 공부서들이 선여거든.
So in the Bodhichitta as well, in the way of the Bodhisattva, it says that by turning his attention towards the needs of others, the Buddha attained perfect enlightenment. And by focusing on our own self-concern, all sentient beings are left in samsara. So look at the difference. Yeah, so there's nothing much to say. You can see the difference when you look at the two.
진동 저거리스 다 시바 나눠서 다롱양 코르발레 라는 코르발의 동안이 온데게리스 산지게 진동 저들이 상지에 차리스.
So the worldly ones looked after our own. The Buddha turned his attention towards working for others and attained liberation, attained Buddhahood, and the worldly ones were self-concerned and are still wandering in samsara. So look at the difference. So I'm going to conclude the teachings here for today.